Hola everybody and welcome back to English for You. I'm Pat.
I'm Elsie. Was that Ola?
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
So today we're on day 2 of our article about the Cubano or Cuban sandwich, this delicious meal made with a loaf of Cuban bread baked with a palmetto leaf on it.
Yes, and the outside is coated with butter and the top level with yellow mustard to add a hint of tangy heat.
Yep, and then you put on cheese and pickles and smoked ham and roasted pork.
After this, you toast it on a flat grill.
Sounds great, right? You get all these extra flavors, the roasted smell of the meat, the tangy smell of or taste of the mustard. It's got a nice crunch because it's been toasted. What a fantastic combination of ingredients to make this sandwich. But how did this sandwich come to be? Where's it from? How did it make its journey from its original form to the one we enjoy today? Let's find out in day 2 of our article.
Reading.
Viva Cubano! Celebrating the Cuban sandwich. If you think the Cuban sandwich comes from Cuba, you're half right. It's believed that an early version of the Cubano was created by the Taino people, who were natives of Cuba. They used local foods such as fish and cassava bread. Spanish settlers exchanged these for wheat bread and pork to suit their tastes. However, it was not until Cuban immigrants came to Florida that the Cubano really took off. In Florida, many Cubans were employed in the tobacco industry. They worked in cigar factories and, like all factory workers, needed something quick but filling at lunchtime. Cuban sandwiches were the answer. Workers from European countries contributed by adding other ingredients to the dish. 2 cities in Florida still argue over who can claim responsibility for making the Cubano so iconic. Tampa was the first U.S. city to make Cuban bread in the traditional way. However, Miami claims its large Cuban population helped the sandwich become mainstream. Regardless of who is right, there's no denying that Florida's Cubans have given the world a delicious gift.
So Elsie, where do you think the Cuban sandwich comes from?
It's from Cuba.
Surely.
对啊.
Well, the article says if you think the Cuban sandwich comes from Cuba, you're half right.
Only half right?
Only half.
只有对了一半，不是全对哦。然后文章告诉我们it's believed that an early version of the Cubano was created by the Taino people, who were natives of Cuba.
Okay, so the half right we got is the early version was from Cuba and its native people. A version is a particular kind or form of something, and we use this word to imply that there are several forms. So we talked about the classic Cubano. Then I talked about having a vegetarian version of the Cubano. Now we're talking about an early version, one that was made a few hundred years ago and was a bit different in some way from the form or the version we have now.
对，所以我们这边讲的是早期的版本，古巴三明治的早期版本是被泰诺族创造出来的。Taino people， 好，泰诺族指的是加勒比地区的原住民族。They were natives of Cuba.
The word native here is a noun and it means a person who comes from the particular part of the world we've specified. We've said it. Natives of Cuba or Cuba, they come from Cuba. That's their home country. They've not arrived from another country. Now, in some cases, it can mean the person's family have been in the country for hundreds or thousands of years. Maybe they are the first people there. But it doesn't have to. Now, I'm a native of Nottingham. That's where I was born. But I was the first member of my family born there. So none of the rest of my parents, grandparents are from Nottingham. So they're not natives, but I am. So it doesn't have to be a long family connection. But here it is. The Taino people were living in Cuba a long time before Europeans came. Here's another example. The Tao people are natives of Orchid Island, or Lanyu.
Native 这边当名词用，代表原住民或是本地人，所以呢，当你看到 be 动词加上 native of， 那就代表来自点点点的人或是点点点的原住民。所以例句刚刚说到的是达悟人、雅美族人是来自兰屿的原住民族。那另外 native 当然可以当作形容词用，代表本地的原生的，像是 native species， 那就是原生的物种。A native language 那就是你的母语，那像是 a native English speaker 那就是母语为英文的人。
Okay, so these native people, they made a kind of Cubano to start with. We see they used local foods. Of course they did, such as fish and cassava bread.
Cassava 指的是原产自南美洲的植物木薯，那 cassava bread 指的就是用木薯粉做成的面包。
Yeah, imagine you get it and you make the bread flour out of it, you bake it up, that kind of thing. So that was an early version. We then see Spanish settlers exchanged these, meaning those ingredients, for wheat bread and pork to suit their tastes.
Okay.
So they're like, well, we kind of think these are okay, but it's a sandwich. Let's make it with bread. We like pork, put pork in it, not fish, and so on. And who did this? It was settlers. Settlers are people who come to a country or an area to live. And we often use this word to mean large groups, large families of people, rather than just one.
Settler 代表就是移居者、拓荒者。我们这边讲到 Spanish settlers， 也就是来自西班牙的移居者、拓荒者。那动词用到的会是 settle。settle in 后面加上地方，那就是在某处定居下来。So they settled in this area and exchanged these for wheat bread and pork.
That's right. They arrived in Cuba from Spain and they go, right, we like this food, but we're gonna make some changes. So to exchange something basically means to swap it in, swap it out. Take this out, put this in. We often use it with exchange A for B. Think of something as basic as shopping. You are exchanging your money for the food or clothes or whatever you want to buy. It could mean to give something away and get something else. You might have a friend, he's got some snacks you want, you've got some snacks he wants. You're going to exchange them. You'll exchange your bag of chips for his chocolate bar. Here's another example. With this burger, you can exchange the beef for chicken, lamb, or fish. So we'll take the beef out, we'll put something else in.
Exchange 这个动词呢是替换、更换。Exchange A for B， 那代表以 B 来替换、更换 A。那例句说呢，用鸡、羊、鱼替换 beef 牛肉。西班牙的移居者呢，用来替换鱼和木薯面包的是 wheat bread and pork.
Okay, now when we talk about wheat, we mean a particular type of grain. This grain is used to make bread. We use it to make the flour for cookies and cakes and so on. Wheat can be used to make beer and it can be used for many other things like that. The fields of wheat were turning gold in the summer sun. I think it's green maybe to start with and it'll change color.
Wheat 就是我们说的小麦。
Okay. So that's an early version of this Cuban sandwich. We've got people settling in Cuba and making another one to eat it. But at this point, it's not really a big, famous dish that people all around the world like. That's why the article says, however, it was not until Cuban immigrants came to Florida that the Cubano really took off.
今天的 Language in Focus 要讲到的是 not until 还有它的分裂句型。Not until 表示原本没有，直到点点点某事才发生的意思。那我们的例句呢，先给同学们哦。像是我们可以说 He didn't get home until 1 a.m. in the morning， 代表他到凌晨1点才到家。那搭配分裂强调句型来强调语气，我们可以把刚刚出现的句子转换成 It was not until 1 a.m. that he got home。 好，所以我们的句构是主词 it 出来之后 be 动词 is or was 加上去，再接上 not until， 再加上时间点或是事件，那再加上 that 以及一个主词还有动词，就是所谓的名词子句。For example, I didn't realize the soup was too hot until I burned my tongue. 这句话也可以说成 It was not until I burned my tongue that I realized the soup was too hot. 直到我的舌头被烫到，我才发现那碗汤真的很烫。
So we had Spanish settlers coming to Cuba to make the first change, then Cuban immigrants coming to Florida in the US, making the second. An immigrant, it's similar to the word settler. An immigrant is a person who comes to another country to work or live, and you're looking at one. The example sentence, Pat is an immigrant to Taiwan.
Immigrant 指的就是移民，所以 an immigrant to 后面加上国家，就是到那个国家去居住的移民。那动词是 immigrate。So Pat immigrated to Taiwan in
2008.
2008. OK. 那这边呢，我们还看到一个片语是 take off. What does that mean?
Well, here it's not like a plane taking off. Here to take off means it becomes popular. It becomes kind of widespread. A lot of people are enjoying this thing, have heard of this thing, it's getting famous, that sort of thing.
所以课文中的 take off 是大受欢迎、迅速走红的意思。那 take off 还有很多的意思啊，像是飞机要起飞，我们也说的是 take off， 像是 the plane is going to take off, please fasten your seatbelt， 请系好安全带。那再来像是 take your shoes off before you come into the house， 进来前请脱鞋，脱下衣物也是 take off。
Okay, so why did all these Cubans come to Florida? The article says, in Florida, many Cubans were employed in the tobacco industry. Tobacco is a plant with leaves that can be made into something that people smoke in cigarettes, in cigars, in other things like that. It's the plant where it all comes from. So you might have seen this in one of our magazines recently. In New Zealand, the government plans to prevent tobacco being sold to people in order to reduce deaths from smoking.
Tobacco 这个字呢，代表就是烟草、烟叶。那很多的古巴人当时在烟草产业工作。
Right, we see that they worked in cigar factories and, like all factory workers, needed something quick but filling at lunchtime. Yeah, I did some time working in something like a factory. You get through 3 or 4 or 5 hours of hard work. You want a nice big full lunch, but you don't have time to sit down and eat a big meal. You want it quick and you want it to fill your tummy. Now, these factories where they worked was where cigars were being made. A cigar is a long, rolled bundle of tobacco leaves intended for smoking.
Cigar 指的就是雪茄啦。那在雪茄工厂工作的这些人呢，他们需要能够在中午快速填饱肚子的食物 ，quick and filling.
All right, and of course, Cuban sandwiches were the answer.
And then the article says, workers from European countries contributed by adding other ingredients to the dish.
Right, so we've got a mix here. We've got Cuban people bringing the kind of sandwich style. We've got other people from Europe also working here going, you know what would make this great? Put some of this in, put some ham in, put a cheese in, put some pickle in, whatever it is that they're doing. They're just adding these extra ingredients. They are contributing. To contribute means to be a part of a group or an activity and help that thing to be successful. You're doing your part. You're not doing the whole thing. Other people are adding something, but you are part of this group effort.
Contribute 这个动词呢是出力起作用或是贡献 Contribute to 那就是对点点点做出贡献你在学校里面 You can contribute to a group report 你可以对一个团体报告做出贡献以后上班 You can contribute to a project 你可以对一个专案报告做出贡献或者是呢 You can also contribute to your company 你可以对你的公司做出贡献
Now, you may have noticed Elsie and I pronouncing that in slightly different ways. Contribute, contribute, Both are absolutely fine. So a lot of people are kind of adding their own ideas to make this Cubano. And in fact, no one can really agree about who exactly or where exactly this thing was made.
Oh, so they're still arguing about it.
It is like with a lot of foods, there's things like the pavlova with Australia and New Zealand argue who made it. In Taiwan, you've got the bubble tea. Was it in Taichung? Was it in Tainan? Who really knows? So what's going on here? Two cities in Florida still argue, so this is many, many decades later, still argue over who can claim responsibility for making the Cubano so iconic. So they want to claim responsibility. Responsibility is the state of being the person who did something or should do something. Now, this could be a job they have to do. I'm going to do that job. That's my responsibility. It could be the blame for something. You made that mistake. That's your responsibility. But in this case, it's being the person or group that created something good and should get the credit for it. They should be recognized. It should be, yes, you did it. You're the good person. To claim responsibility with the verb claim is to say, I did it. It was me. So we could look at it in the other way. None of the three brothers wanted to claim responsibility for the broken window. Wasn't me.
Responsibility 这个名词呢是责任，然后搭配动词 claim 或是 accept responsibility for something， 那就是承认点点点对点点点负责，正面负面都可以用。所以像例句当中就是说这三个兄弟他们不愿意为破掉的窗户负责。
So they both want to say, it was us. It was in this city. The Cubano became iconic. The word iconic means very famous or popular, and it's often used to mean something that's considered to represent a particular opinion, a particular time, a particular thing. This is the Cubano. This is this great sandwich, and we made it.
Iconic 这个形容词就是有象征意义的，具代表性的。
So, who are these two cities? Well, the first one, the article says, Tampa was the first US city to make Cuban bread in the traditional way.
Okay.
So the bakers there are using the long loaves with the moist palmetto leaves. So they say, well, that's us. We did that.
However, Miami claims its large Cuban population helped the sandwich become mainstream.
So they're saying, look, all the Cubans are here. They're making these sandwiches. They're spreading it to the world. They're making it become mainstream. Here, mainstream is an adjective, and it means to be considered normal. It has ideas and beliefs that most people have heard of, and they accept, and they think, yep, this is good. It's not kind of something strange that only a few people like. It's the kind of stuff that most people like. Pop music or action movies, those are mainstream.
Mainstream 这个字很好记哦，前面是主要的 main， 后面是 stream 溪流，合在一起主流的。所以到底是谁让古巴三明治成为主流呢
Well,
That's right.
We don't really know because they're never going to say, no, it was you, you did it. They're both going to claim it forever. So that's why the article concludes by saying, regardless of who is right, there's no denying that Florida's Cubans have given the world a delicious gift. So this phrase, regardless of, is used to say, it doesn't really matter. It shows the outcome will be the same. The conditions won't change this. It doesn't matter if it's Miami or Tampa who should get the credit. Doesn't matter. The point is, you gave the world the sandwich.
Regardless of 代表不管无论，所以我们可以说 regardless of what you think, I believe she is the perfect fit for the job. 不管你怎么想，我相信她是这份工作的最佳人选。再来还有一个很重要的句型 There's no denying that.
Right, we use there's no denying. We can omit the that or we can keep it in. There's no denying it. Something is clearly true. No one can sensibly argue that it isn't true. Yep, there's no denying that Pat is not very tall.
也就是不可否认的是，毋庸置疑的是。所以课文最后说到，不可否认的是，佛罗里达州的古巴人让世界尝到了美味的古巴三明治。
Okay, well, that is the end of today's article, the history of the Cubano. We've already talked about what's in it. In our article, you can have a go at trying to organize the recipe for making one, but let's now go to today's For You Chat question.
For You Chat.
Today's For You Chat question is, how have immigrants added to Taiwanese food? Give some examples.
Well, I guess it's kind of a little weird because a lot of the things you'd think of as Taiwanese food actually came from mainland China, various different times and places. So you think of like, okay, Din Tai Fung is a big famous Taiwanese restaurant, but Xiaolongbao come from China somewhere, right?
Okay.
Is it Shanghai area maybe?
So they brought those foods in here and maybe change
a few things, use some local ingredients, that kind of thing. So it works both ways. Taiwanese people are changing immigrant food, and immigrant food is maybe adding some, maybe since, there's more beef than there used to be.
Yeah, or maybe they add more authentic flavor.
Yeah, or more cheese maybe in different things than there might have been a long time ago. Think of when you go to a night market and you order a 葱油饼, right? So maybe in the past there wouldn't have been the option to have cheese in it or sweet corn in it.
Or bacon.
Right, because those things weren't really cooked or grown here. So by having immigrants, that means, okay, we've got a few more different options to stick in our 葱油饼.
Right, you can add bacon, you can add cheese, and maybe kimchi.
Right, kimchi, that's one example. Yeah, kimchi danbings, you can find them almost everywhere now. And kimchi is, of course, from Korea. It may have not been actual Korean people bringing it, but it's certainly a food from abroad. Okay, those are a few examples. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for watching, everybody. For English For You, I'm Pat.
I'm Elsie.
Talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Vocabulary Review. Native. Jerry is a native of Germany, but he's lived in the U.S. for his entire adult life. Exchange. If you can't drink cow milk, you can exchange it for almond milk in this coffee. Wheat. We grow wheat on this farm and use it to make delicious bread and cakes. Immigrant. Nico's parents are immigrants from Greece who moved to this country more than 20 years ago. Tobacco. Smoking tobacco is harmful to your health, but many people still do it because it calms them down. Responsibility. My teacher claims responsibility for my great English, but I'm the one who made the effort to learn it.
智慧小补帖
Version. Settler. Cigar. Contribute. Iconic. Mainstream.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net